what a what an entertaining game. Obviously, good win for us for a lot of different reasons. Probably the biggest one, and even the series, season series 2-2 with those guys. But we got a lot of great performances from a lot of different guys. Even a guy like Kessler, Duarte, those guys weren't even expecting to play tonight. We throw them in the game, and whether they gave us 2 minutes or 5 minutes, we needed somebody to step up and play as hard as they could, and those guys did. And even taking it the other way, JaVale was expected to play, and at the last second we decided to go small. He's just been a phenomenal teammate. He was great about it tonight. He was leading us on the bench in cheers, pre-game. He gets the guys hype, even post-game in the locker room. I mean, you're talking about a phenomenal teammate in JaVale McGee. He was huge, even though he didn't play a second for us. And it's a testament because he's an NBA champion, been to the finals multiple times, and I hope all of our guys, especially our young guys, take notice of his demeanor and his connectivity to our group as a whole. But a lot of great performances. Davion was fantastic off the bench on both ends of the floor. Kev led us in rebounding. We've been on Kevin about rebounding and defending, and he did a phenomenal job in both of those areas for us tonight. Obviously, Domas with the 13 assists, Foxy with the 29 points, especially a couple threes, a couple of timely threes were huge. Keegan, you're not stopping Steph Curry at all. He's obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greatest. Steph has 18 or something like that in the first, and we just decided to try to match Keegan's minutes with him to see if Keegan can make him work. And they just throw a lot of different things at you offensively. Steph's a screener, and then Steph's a ball handler, and then Steph's coming off a flare, and then he's coming off a pin down. Just they do all types of things to get you confused, and they did. But he has 18 in the first and 15 the rest of the game. And again, you're not stopping him. You just hope to make him work, and we thought Keegan did his best to try to make him work those last three quarters. But lastly, I HB was huge. As you guys know, throughout most of this year, I don't think I called a single play for him. And these last two games alone, just tonight, I called more plays for him tonight than I did the entire year combined. And so I got to give him his due respect because he's come up big for us. He came up big in the last game against Atlanta down the stretch. He came up huge tonight. Obviously, he was aggressive throughout the course of the game, and he kept us either in the game or extended the lead. And then down the stretch, when we looked a little out of sorts, I just called his number, put him in a spot that he's very familiar with, and he had two huge buckets for us. On top of that, big stop on Kuminga on the other end of the floor. Even Keegan had a great block. Foxy and Kevin's read, the blitz. Steph on that last play, just really good basketball on both ends of the floor at times, most times, for us to close a tight game down the stretch versus a very, very good team. And, I've said this to you guys that those losses on the road really hurt, but they made us all self-reflect, starting with me, on what we need to do better down the stretch on both ends. And it's starting to show a little bit. So I'm extremely proud of our guys finding a way to get the win tonight in a tight ball game versus a very good team.
Yeah, Mike, I was waiting for you to reference the Harrison defensive stop at the end. A lot's going to be made about the offense, over 43 for both these teams. Not what we really saw in the playoffs, but for the game to end with the HB stop and then Fox and Herter kind of forcing that Steph turnover there at the end. Is that kind of the icing on the cake or cherry on top to win a game with two big defensive plays?
For sure, because everybody says, hey, you got to make plays offensively. You got to go get a bucket. You got to make the pass or do this or do that. You can make a play defensively, and Kuminga's a heck of a young player. He's obviously going to be really, really, really good, and he's been a handful. He was a handful for us all night, but HB just walled up and led with his chest like we talked to him, and he made a defensive play. It's a hell of a play versus a very, very good young player that kind of had his way with us at times tonight. Huge. And then, Kev, we didn't necessarily say we were going to blitz at the time. If our guys got an opportunity, they know Steph's beat us before, that we don't want him to beat us. And so Kevin to react the way he did, Fox to continue to pursue and blitz Steph and see if somebody else was going to beat us. It was a huge defensive play that those guys made. So those two plays were just as big as HB's two buckets when we needed them.
What led to that last-minute decision to not go in JaVale's direction, and how do you feel like that small ball lineup did?
The small ball lineup did well. JaVale's been playing well for us, and it just sometimes you just get a gut feel. Has nothing to do with stats, analytics, numbers, anything like that. You just get a gut feel, and they were small, and so we said, hey, you know what? Let us go small. Let's go small. We could switch if we need to. Steph was still on the floor at the time when we usually bring JaVale in. Draymond's a handful with the basketball, and we went with it. And we thought it worked out okay in the first half, and so we went with it again in the second half.
Coach Brown, probably shouldn't say it, the unlikely heroes, but they were the unlikely heroes, Herter, Barnes, and Davion Mitchell, because I think he made his first three shots. I think they were behind the arc. Can you talk about his play? I don't think you mentioned Davion at this point.
No, I did. Davion was huge for us. He was one of the first guys that I mentioned. He was big for us on both ends of the floor. He stepped in. He looked really good shooting the three ball. He was active for us defensively. He pushed the pace. He got downhill a couple of times and sprayed the ball. So I thought Davion was really good for us, and he's been good since I've put him back in the lineup.
Coach, I asked this to De'Aaron earlier. He was saying how he doesn't consider playing against the Warriors a rivalry, but given the close proximity between your two teams and the fact that you guys play some really competitive games, is it safe to say this could be a rivalry between the two teams?
Maybe it could. Right now, obviously, they've accomplished so much, and I don't know, the last 10 years or whatever it's been, with 8 years, whatever it's been, with the 4 or 5 championships and, deep playoff runs. So, as time goes on and we continue to get more competitive with them and, maybe we beat them in the playoffs or something like that, then that may add more credibility to it, but we're trying to carve our own path right now, and their path is already carved. I mean, they know they can play better probably than what they're playing now, or they feel they can, or whatever it is, and they will at the end of the day, especially when you have three Hall of Famers, and Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Those guys are still high level basketball players, and you got a Hall of Fame coach in Steve. So we still have some things that we got to take care of first before it's probably a full-blown rivalry. They've been fun games for the fans, though.
I know it's not your choice in that final closing section, but it looked like they almost took a timeout a couple times. On the no, they almost took a couple times timeout a couple times. As a defensive coach, would you prefer the timeout to get the subs you want, set your defense, or do you like going have to scramble? Is there a preference there?
Well, offensively, you always like to put your opponent in a scramble situation. So you usually let it go. But defensively, yes, you prefer to talk about some things. But, I kind of alluded to this earlier. Some of our tough losses, down the stretch where we didn't finish, really made us look in the mirror, start with me, and try to clean some things up to get across to our guys to put them in better positions down the stretch. And that was a read for Kevin to blitz Steph. And, because we've spent a lot of time on it with these tough losses, our guys knew exactly what should have happened when they were put in certain positions. So I take my hat off to our group for responding to the long film sessions, the walkthroughs, the teachings, and everything that we did to try to clean up our end of game stuff.
Mike HB talked about like 5 guys working in concert and not being attached to who gets credit, and how, some nights you may get shots, some nights you may just run to the corner or set screens or whatever. Just what can you say about his level of professionalism and readiness, and kind of the I don't know, the path he's had this year in getting to this point where now he's getting some shots and maximizing those opportunities?
But again, I go back to not just stuff that happens on the court, but even throwing a guy like Dorte or Kessler in when they didn't think they were going to play. We threw Kessler in the second half. And then even a guy like JaVale still up and cheering his teammates on when we told him he was going to play this morning, So the connectivity of the group has a lot to do with it. HB is a guy that has been extremely professional the entire time I've been around him. You can going back to the playoffs last year when there were times that I sat him, and whenever his number was called, he went out and tried to do what he can to help us win. That right there, the way he carries himself, as positive as he is with his teammates, the way he tries to hold everybody accountable, it's all great leadership stuff. And, he's definitely much appreciated because he's helped us in a lot of ways that, people outside won't know.
That's interesting.
Coach, you talked a little bit about Keegan, and I think before the game you used the word unfair when you were referring to the kind of defensive assignments that he's had this season. He struggled a little bit offensively to start the game, but how do you see him, balancing both ends of the floor? I think he drew a charge and then he had a big block early in the game. So how do you kind of see him balancing that on the defensive and the offensive side of the floor?
He's doing a great job for a young guy. Again, you look at a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, and this is what year is this? Year 3 for him. And they're just now asking him to step up. We asked Keegan to step up as he was walking off the Iowa campus, So he's handled it extremely well. You wish he had time to develop like Kuminga and Moody and some other young guys around the league. And some people may say, well, look at the young fella in Orlando. The difference is, they weren't in the playoffs last year, and pressure's not there when you're coming out of college or you're coming into the league right now to be an integral factor on both ends of the floor to help make the playoffs and make a playoff run. So Keegan's done a fantastic job handling it, and we're going to continue to put that pressure on him because he's shown he can handle it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Mike.
We got Domas right here, guys.
Safe travels. Talk to them.